Hi everyone, thank you so much for coming to our talk today. We're really excited to be here. Before we kick things off, we're just going to do a really quick intro for you all. So who are we? As Kirk just mentioned, we both work at Xero. I'm Sarah Bennett, I'm the team leader of the security operations team at Xero, and talking with me today is my lovely colleague and team member, Patricia Ramsden. She's a security operations engineer in my team.
So we're one of 6 security teams at Xero, and we've both been at Xero for about 2 years now.
Yeah. So again, before we get started, I just wanted to quickly touch on what we mean when we say guarding the pot of gold. So guarding the pot of gold, so to speak, is essentially guarding whatever is of value to your organisation. So at Xero, we're talking about guarding our customers and their information and data.
So who are we protecting? We're a local company, we're based in New Zealand. We have offices in at least 5 different countries, but we have customers around the world, so at least 180 countries. But the majority are in the blue sections here on this map. As a company, we're targeted towards small to medium businesses and accounting practices.
So today we're going to be talking about 2 main categories of attacks that we see as a team and that our customers see. First of all, email-based attacks, so this is the phishing attacks, spearfishing attacks, and invoice fraud we're also going to be touching on. Email is the primary channel of attack that we see, so we're really going to have a bit of a focus on that today. Secondly, we're going to also talk about account-based attacks, so credential stuffing and credential testing, and we're going to talk about a few other forms of brand abuse as well. So, to start things off, phishing.
So who are the primary targets? Customers. A lot of these get reported to us by customers. So these are to their personal email accounts or their company email accounts. The numbers that we've sort of seen are typically quite low, but whenever we have something that goes in the media or things like that, it picks up a little bit. What are they after? Login credentials, personal details, things like that. So this is what's reported to us. Of course, it doesn't hit our systems, so we don't know the full impact. But you'll see down the bottom there's 2 rows. Now, most of the time, these didn't go over that 2 rows. The first time that we saw it go over 2 rows was in May. So that's quite interesting because we've always seen a steady stream of these sort of things. But you'll also notice that in May, we actually hit 1 million subscribers. So we put out a lot of press about this in a lot of different channels, and that was the first time it went higher than those 2 rows. You'll also see there's another huge spike later on in the year.
So this is an example of a phishing page targeting Xero customers. As you can see, for those of you who are familiar with the genuine Xero login page, it looks pretty legitimate when you first look at it. But like with all phishing sites, obviously the URL is highly suspicious. This one's, I think, cardly.com or something like that. So obviously it has the potential to catch a lot of our customers off guard. Let's just see what this page then takes you to if you were to enter in your credentials. Verify it's you. So this is where it gets suspicious. They're obviously asking for our customers' phone number. We don't require phone numbers from our customers when they sign up with Xero, and this is nothing, this is not a way that we would verify our customers at all.
This is not a page that exists in our product anywhere, but they are using all the same branding, all the same fonts. It looks like it should be.
So moving on, we're now going to take you through invoice fraud and what we're seeing in regards to that.
So this is a page from ConnectSmart. It was written in conjunction with Xero. So the primary target is customers. It's important to note that this isn't actually touching our system once again. This is from a victim's email account to a victim's email account or vice versa. High numbers upon each campaign. So we suspect that there's a link between the phishing campaigns we see and the invoice frauds we see as well. So there's usually peaks and troughs, a burst, and then it goes right down again. And what we think they want, obviously people to pay the money it's a money-based attack.
So there's two ways that we are hearing about this invoice fraud occurring. First way is where a business sends an invoice to a customer and the business's email is compromised. So typically in these circumstances, the malicious actor obviously has access to the business's email, and they'll find invoices that have recently been sent in the sent items folder, and they'll simply follow up these emails saying, sorry, we've provided you with the wrong bank account number, please pay this account number, and obviously provide a fraudulent or a mule account. The second way that we're seeing it occur is very similar, but it's where the recipient's email address or email account is compromised. So the malicious actor is obviously sitting in the account waiting for invoices to be received, and when they are received, in the malicious actor's perfect scenario, they will delete the genuine one before it's been read and simply replace it with a fraudulent one, again with fraudulent bank account information. So they send this in just simply by spoofing the sender's email account, because obviously they don't have, in this situation, access to the sender's email account necessarily. We have seen situations where both the sender and the recipient's emails have been compromised. So in both situations, this is an example of the type of email that a malicious actor might send. This is a real life example. This one in particular, thankfully, was picked up due to the poor grammar and simply due to the fact that it just reads terribly, and just to the suspicious nature overall. But unfortunately, some of these follow-up emails that malicious actors send out can be quite convincing and can read a lot better, so people do fall for these scams.
Cool. So the first reports that we had of these coming into our team, they only date back to last year, so it's reasonably new. These reports, so you'll notice there's two spikes, and the second one's smaller than the first. Well, we started reporting these on our notice board, of course, so that might have reduced numbers reported in general from customers to us. So the second spike might not necessarily actually reflect truly whether or not there was a decrease at that point, but we do know that it's usually done in big campaigns. So we'll see a lot over a very small period of time, decrease, drop off, and then it will rise again.
Okay, so moving on to something a bit different, credential testing and credential stuffing.
So this is one of the only ones we're going to talk about, which is actually an account-based attack as opposed to an email-based attack. So what they're doing is they're buying credentials or they're getting them through phishing scams, and then they're trying them against our site, seeing what sticks, seeing what ones are valid. The primary target is, of course, customers, but we've noticed that when new lists are available, new compromised sites and things like that, we do see a big spike in this type of attack. So the first major credentials testing campaign that we've seen was on June the 6th. This is an extract from our security notice board, what we published at the time. So a lot of the time we see this prior to our customers reporting it. However, we do get reports of this from our customers, usually tipped off through our emails that we send out saying there's been an anomalous login to your account. So proactive, and then, of course, reports as well. So this wouldn't be possible if there wasn't password reuse in most scenarios.
All right, so now we're going to touch on some other forms of brand abuse.
So we see two primary variants. So there's the typical user support, similar to Microsoft support scams. The actor usually gives the impression that they're from Xero, not always, but usually. They'll charge the customer a service fee for the privilege, and then they can sometimes install malware as part of this and charge the customer for that, but we don't always see that. The second type is the leads user list for sale scam. These aren't user lists, they don't have our information, but they like to pretend they do. They get it from all sorts of places, gather it online, that sort of thing. And then they'll charge a victim for the fake leads and the user lists. So, of course, primary target customers, also people that are interested in our customers. We don't really see a lot of either of these two. They almost disappeared entirely last year. But yeah, they have had a bit of a peak recently. So in December, for the first time, we saw both during the same month. Usually you'd see one or the other or neither, and we saw both in December.
So this is just one example of a zero user support scam webpage. We became aware of this website after a customer of ours reported it to us. Unfortunately, this customer Googled zero support phone number and made her way to this page. Now she took us through her experience in using this support phone number. She allowed someone to remote access into her computer. They then told her that she had a technical problem that they could solve for her, but it was going to cost her several $100s, at which point she became highly suspicious and thankfully terminated the phone call and shut down her computer. But unfortunately, we only know what's reported to us. There could have been other customers who fell for this. And what's obviously interesting and concerning is that Xero don't charge for support, nor do we have a phone number in Australia. Another example, a little bit less professional looking, and you may recognise that it is a Facebook page. So, you know, the people running these scams, they don't discriminate. They use whatever means they can to advertise these numbers. We have even seen YouTube videos advertising Xero support numbers. And the last example of these kinds of scams is this website, Nat Patches. So they were offering support for Xero customers, but actually also a raft of big names, global businesses that you would all recognise. And what is interesting is a lot of these scams advertise a local phone number, but we're fairly certain that this is not operating locally. When you actually call the phone number, it takes a while to connect. The person on the other end of the line has a fairly thick foreign accent and it's very laggy. So yeah, like I said, we're fairly convinced that these are scams operating from overseas. Okay, so on to spearfishing.
So this is one of the only ones we're going to talk about that's actually targeting our employees. We don't get a lot of these, typically scattered through quiet phases, which is interesting. But we do get a steady number of these coming in during the year. Obviously, same MO, after money or malware, essentially, with the malicious links or trying to get something paid. During a campaign, we only usually see 1 to 6 of the same email. Usually it's flagged prior to actually getting to our staff members, and all of our staff members are really quite suspicious of emails at the moment, so we get sent a lot of stuff that we probably don't even need to be sent.
So this is an example of a targeted spearfishing email. It was sent to a member of our finance team, and as you can see, if you have a quick skim read, the malicious actor has constructed the email to look like it was a email thread between Rod, our CEO, and Sanka, our CFO, obviously requesting the actioning of a fairly large deposit into a bank account in China. Thankfully, the staff member picked this up straight away as being suspicious and reported it through to us. But obviously, you know, depending on your organisation and the awareness that you put out to staff, it can go one of two ways.
So I've mentioned a lot of months, I've mentioned a lot of spikes. What does this actually mean? So having a look at this, we announced that we had hit 1 million subscribers in March. So since then, we've had a major campaign, or we've gone over our usual numbers every month since then, almost. In August, it actually continued until October, so that month even did have one too. So you can see that we're seeing bigger numbers. As you get bigger, you're a bigger target. And it's been pretty gloomy so far. What can you do? Is there a solution? Maybe not a solution, but there's things that can help, I suppose. Yay! All the things. So we've mentioned a lot of fraud that comes from email accounts, doesn't even pass through our system. In a lot of those cases, if they had multi-factor on their email accounts, which is probably one of your biggest private places, right? It's got a lot of information. If they had multi-factor, these attackers wouldn't be able to do that. And even on the zero-based ones, with our logins, there's multi-factor available. They wouldn't, even if they could try the credentials, they still wouldn't be able to get into the accounts, and they would be worthless.
Yep. Also, education and awareness. This is so, so important. Even just pushing the basics, a lot of what we've talked about today are basic attacks that many of you would know about and would be vigilant about if you were to receive an email or something of that nature. But there's so many people out there that still fall for these scams, and the basics just aren't being covered with them. If they were, these attacks would not still be a thing. They wouldn't be profitable.
And in terms of our blog, if a customer's unsure, they'll probably end up Googling it. And if they do, they'll come up with that page. So it really does help our customers having that there. And communication, this is probably the most basic. It's pretty, of course. But in terms of invoice fraud, if you get an email that says, hey, no, pay it into this bank account, not that one, I mean, just a simple follow-up text or a phone call would have prevented a lot of funds being lost to a lot of people. It's really back to basics with this. Pushing that communication wherever possible will really help people.
So that's it from us. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for coming along to our talk, and obviously thank you to the chapter leaders for having us here today.
Thanks to the School of Business, and thanks Kirk for saying, hey, you should do a talk. And thanks for listening. If you have questions or feedback, because this is about our company, come up to us afterwards or email us, that's fine, but we're not going to take questions right now.
Cool. Thanks so much, everybody.